These are typical of some of the power line installations found in the Australian countryside. This is a 6-wire high voltage line. Here, a number of lines meet on one post. Note that one line is lower and that another single wire leads off and then becomes a 3-wire line. Power lines are always hard to see from the air. Birds roosting can make them a little more obvious, but this is the exception. Wires can be obscured by vegetation. Guy wires are particularly dangerous when, as in this case, they're hidden by trees.
The insulators determine the run of the wire. This can be seen with this one here. The insulator on top, the wire runs straight through. Now this is exactly the same for multi-stranded wires as for single-stranded wires. The multi-strands, the insulators are hanging straight down, the wire runs straight through. Here we have a pole with the wire running straight over the top and a spur line off to a shed or a house or some other thing. This one here, the wire runs on an angle. As we can see here, the insulator's off to one side, which means the wire actually takes a bend. And the thing we need to watch for there is the stay wire that runs out the other side of the pole. Now this situation here, insulator on top and an insulator on the side. So we can see one wire runs along the top of the pole and the other one runs off at an angle. This one here, we have an insulator with the wire running out from the pole and a transformer underneath, as can be seen here. And this is usually a termination point, and on most termination points you will find a stay wire. Here we have a wire running in and back out at an angle, and also another wire running off in the opposite direction. This can be seen by the diagram down the bottom here. Here we have a slight bend in the wire with the wire attached to the side of the insulator. Next we have a crossover of wires, and this normally indicates with a single insulator on top, normally it just indicates one wire going through, but here we have in actual fact 4 wires crossing it. And this one here is a termination, but with a wire continuing on. Power line. As we can see, we can pick up power lines simply by the run of the pole. This wire here is what we call a single wire earth return, only having one wire and the insulator sitting on the top of the pole. We'll go back and have another look. The first pole that we'll be looking at has an insulator on top and one out to the side, and also has a stay wire on it, which means we'd have a wire running straight across the top by the insulator on top and a wire running out to one side, indicated by the insulator leaning to one side, and a stay wire on the opposite side. Now, as we can see, the insulator off on the right-hand side, the stay wire on the left. The thing to note with this wire that there is actually another wire running out on the right-hand side, which we didn't see then. We'll take another look at that wire. Two poles running off. The wire actually takes a bend as well. we need to remember flying under a single wire earth return is that they are very hard to see. As you can see there, we've got to watch out for that stay wire coming out from the pole as well. We're now flying parallel to the wire. The big thing to remember here is to actually pick a point out in front of us to keep the aeroplane tracking straight on so as we don't drift in towards the wire. Don't look at the wire, otherwise we'll start to drift towards that wire. Again, we can see the stay wire, with the wire just going over our head now. As can be seen here by the insulators, the power line heads off to the right. Insulator standing straight up and down means the power line is going straight ahead. Coming up to the next pole, insulators are hanging off to the left-hand side. There's a stay out to the right. Actually means that the wire turns to the left. Once again, as we get closer, we can see here it's hidden by trees, but the insulators are actually turning to the right. Once again, insulators to the left, stay on the right, and they turn to the left. In some cases, we do get power lines that are actually marked with orange balls to help the pilot see. There's not many of them in this country, but it is a good idea. It does help. And we can see the orange balls here on the wire, which because the wire itself is very hard to see, what we do to find the run of the wire is to follow the runs of the poles. As we can see here, the wire is reasonably hard to see, but the poles do stand out. Things to look for with the poles: if we have a wire running off, we'll have a stay wire on the opposite side, and that'll be picked out by the crossbar. The stay wire in this situation is hidden by a tree. Follow this wire along, we'll find the wire takes a bit of a bend, and we have another stay wire. And also on this wire, this pole, we have a wire running off up the hill as well. As can be seen there by the runner poles once again. To initially get the height of the power line to see whether we can fly under it, we're going to have to fly adjacent to it, or parallel. What we do is let down between the poles. Remember in inspection, if you saw a wire running off the poles, there's likely to be a stay wire. Just stop away from the wire a bit and pick a point up further on the horizon to keep the aeroplane straight on so as you don't drift in towards the wire, and just fly straight along. Don't look at the wire, otherwise you will drift in towards it. And then pull up between the poles. As you can see here, we have to pull up over another wire. This is the reason we pull up between the poles. And also I've had to use a natural marker in a tree to gauge where the wire actually is. Flying under power lines and over power lines. The big thing is to maintain a constant spray height across the paddock even when you go under the wire. The spray height should not change. As the aircraft approaches a wire on a spray height, you will notice that the wire is actually moving up the windscreen. This is a a short crop and quite a cool day, and we find that we have plenty of clearance under the wire, even enough to go over the fence. After determining that we can fit under the power lines, this is what it should look like on a spray run. The power line above the horizon, and if we're going to go under the wire at our spray height, without looking at it, we should be able to see the wire slowly move up the screen. If the wire stops stationary in the screen, then we're going to hit it. If it starts moving down the windscreen, then we may hit it with our wheels as we go over it. After picking up the run of power lines, which we've done here, we can see it takes a turn to the left. We'll do a power line inspection and then a flight under the power line. We're following the run along. We're checking the poles now for any crossbars, which you'll see later. We won't see any in this shot. We're just checking that there's no wires actually running off anywhere. Normally the wires would run off at the pole intersection. However, sometimes we will find they'll run in the centre of two poles. Once we've gone over the wire and convinced ourselves that there are no wires running off, we will now go down to spray height and actually check that we can fit under the wire. What we'll do is let down between the two poles, so that if we have missed the wire coming off, we won't hit it. Down we go, spray height, and the wire is high enough there for us to fly under. Come over between the poles and we pull up once again. After assessing that we can actually fly under the wire, we can then start our run lying back at the boards under it. We just went under the wire. It was very hard to see from that direction. We'll do a run back in the opposite direction. The main thing to note is don't stare at the wire, but do make sure that it is above the horizon and that it is actually moving up the windscreen. Now we can see the wire above the horizon now, moving slowly up the windscreen as we go underneath it. If we have to, for some reason, fly over the wire, which we'll do on the next run back, try to use some point as a marker to climb up. Get yourself set up at wire height and stop there until you've got a marker that is clear of the wire to let back down on. The problem with flying over the wire is that when we raise the nose to climb up over it, the wire actually disappears underneath it, and it's very hard to see. If we haven't got an obstacle beside us, just use the pole as a reference point. As you can see, we pull up now, the wire disappears underneath us. We go over, back down the other side. If we have to fly under a wire and then over an obstacle, make sure we've allowed enough room to pull up over that obstacle after going under the wire. This can be assessed by either a ground inspection or flying parallel to the wire and checking that you've got enough room for your let down. Here we are flying under the wire, coming up to the obstacles now, plenty of room, and we just gently pull up. Going back over the obstacles under the wire is slightly harder, as the wire won't be seen until we're down at spray height and it becomes visible above the horizon. We're heading down gently over our obstacles now, a little steeper as we get to the end of them. There's the wire going over us quite nicely. If for some reason we have to fly between the wire and the fence, it can quite easily be done. It's far better to fly between the wire and the fence. Take your wheels out trying to fly over a wire. If you were to come back into the same paddock a few months later, you'd find that the crop would have grown, the weather would have become warmer, and the wires would have sagged due to the heat, which would effectively reduce the distance between the top of the crop and the wire for you to fly under. It probably would reduce it by some 10 feet, 4 foot of a crop growing, and the wire could sag 5 or 6 feet.
Let's now have a look at a spray run under a wire from ground level. As can be seen here, because we have a constant height, there is also a constant spray pattern. On the return leg, the pilot is going to fly over the wire. Remember, it's a more difficult practice due to the fact that the nose comes up in the pull-up, and that obscures the pilot's view. Also, the spray pattern is affected because of the change in application height. The higher the application height, the greater the chance of spray drift.
The majority of wire strikes, when the pilot's finished the paddock and does his clean-up runs, he tends to forget about the wires. So it's always very important to do a reassessment of all your obstacles before doing the clean-up runs at the end of the paddock.